DATV, and the Greater Dayton Area League of Women Voters present Meet the Candidates, your chance to learn about the candidates running for office in the November election.
Hi, I'm Patty Skilkin. I'm president of the League of Women Voters of the Greater Dayton area, and I'm here today talking to some of the candidates for the Dayton City Commission. The city government of Dayton is governed by a city commission comprising 5 commissioners, one of whom is the mayor. The commissioners serve staggered 4-year terms, and the mayor is elected in a separate election. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe the salary for a commissioner is $38,064. The mayor makes a little bit more. She gets $45,344. We're going to start by introducing our candidates. We're going to be talking today to Darryl Fairchild, Matt Joseph, Scott Sliver, not Silver, Sliver. Chris Shaw was detained and could not get here in time. Let's start with some questions with Darryl. Darryl, how do you feel about, there's a lot of talk in the papers lately about Dayton being a welcoming community for immigrant children, and now we're dealing with refugees. What's your opinion on all that?
Well, I'm proud that we have been an immigrant welcoming community. I think the diversity of our city is important. There's been issues around that, even before we looked at the unaccompanied minor children and the current Syrian refugees. I think we want to do right by all our citizens. As a pastor and Christian, I think we need to welcome those who are the most vulnerable, and refugees would certainly fall in that category. But there's been questions raised around these issues. You know, I have colleagues who are African American, and we have ongoing issues around race relations, and they would point out that while we've been welcoming to some folks, we haven't always been welcoming to all, and we need to do well to welcome all. And we also need to look at the capacity we have in our community to receive refugees. We've had, at one time, Dayton was a really great place for refugees to settle because we had a lot of unskilled work that people could take on. We aren't that city now, and we've still been taking on refugees kind of at the same rate as we have. And our capacity to receive refugees needs to be looked at to make sure we have adequate resources and we can put these families in a situation where they can do well. Thank you, Darryl.
Matt, same question. How do you feel about immigrants, children immigrants or refugees? What's your feeling about that?
That's a good question. I think that welcoming those who are in a community, no matter what race they are, no matter where they come from, is always a good idea. I helped start the Welcome Dayton initiative precisely for that reason, because we want to make sure that people who are here in the community, refugees or immigrants, felt like they were able to use their talents and abilities to the best that they could, so they could be contributing members of the community. And I agree, actually, Mr. Fairchild's answer was very good on one point. We have to make sure that we're welcoming everybody, and that the point of Welcome Dayton isn't to give people a special treat or extra stuff. The point of Welcome Dayton is to make sure that everybody realizes the resources that are here to help them, whether it's education resources, whether it's job training, whether it's housing, whether it's just a friendly hand or a smile. That already exist to make sure that they can reach their full potential and help the community. We do a pretty good job already, even just a couple years into the initiative of welcoming people. We have an ongoing conversation with all of our partners to make sure that we're not overreaching our capacity, whether it's in housing or job searchers or whatever it might be, assistants and translators. So that conversation has been ongoing. It's something that Welcome Dayton has really pushed forward. And I think that we have the capacity to welcome immigrants from anywhere as they come. If they're refugees fleeing a terrible situation, then I think it's our duty to, as high as our capacity can go, to welcome them.
Thanks, Matt. Scott, you get the same question and you have 2 minutes to answer it.
Okay, thank you. First, thanks for having all of us here. It's a real honor to be here with you today.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love the Welcome Dayton initiative. I've been to Africa twice. I've been to Ukraine. I've been to Mexico. Been around the world a few times, and I love that we welcome people from all parts of the world. I think it's great. I think the heart of the question you were asking about is currently the mayor, signed a letter along with, I think it was mayors from 14 cities about welcoming Syrian refugees. I'm all for welcoming refugees and from Syria, but I think we have to be very cautious. People need to be vetted. They need to come through, legal channels. Obviously, immigration, especially as it relates to Mexico, is a hot topic in recent debates. But I love refugees. I met a guy, his name, he's a friend of mine. He came in, and his name's Jean-Paul Mugizi, and I met him 3 weeks after he came into Dayton, and I took him out for a burger. He just left a comment on my Facebook page. Took him to Five Guys, bought him a burger, asked him why he was here. I helped him get set up at Sinclair. We helped him apply for university at Miami University in Oxford. He graduated, and now he's working in Seattle for Boeing. And, I think that kind of attention to folks is really good and really important, and we have to be careful about it.
Thank you. Matt, we're going to start with you this time. Our next question is, with respect to the proposed city-county merger, do you see benefits to the citizens of Dayton for that? How do you feel about that potential merger?
It's a good question. Well, I'll say right out, I don't think it's a good idea. I think that there are three things that I could say right off the bat that I don't like about the proposal as it's been publicized so far. The first is how the proposal was put together. I didn't know about the proposal until the night before it appeared in the paper. I got a call from a newspaper reporter asking me what I thought about the proposal. So I wasn't involved. None of my colleagues at the city were involved in building the proposal. And as a major part of the plan, you would have hoped that we would have been part of the conversation building it. So that's my first problem, is it wasn't built right. The second thing is that it doesn't really get to the benefits that could come from cooperation and a merger. Merging the county and the city is somewhat like saying we're going to merge the state and the county. It doesn't really make sense. There are different competencies. The city and the county are responsible for different things, and you don't have the return on investment that one would hope for in this sort of a thing. The third reason is that the way the proposal is set up, it disenfranchises every voter in the city of Dayton. It's not a fair proposal, and I think it's a bad idea.
Thanks, Matt. Scott, how do you feel about that?
Well, it's not a merger, it's a takeover. And about the only person that I've heard that is in favor of it is the person who designed it, and that's County Commissioner Dan Foley and his team of people. While it's not completely fleshed out, one thing is for sure is that it will quiet the voices of the people of Dayton, and it will silence 42% of the voters who are African American, and that is a major concern. So I don't support it, and I've not heard many people who do.
Well, we're going to find out how Darryl feels about that. Darryl?
Well, I think if you're a Dayton resident, you can't be for this proposal. As my colleagues have said, it's not fair to the voters and the citizens of Dayton. It, by and large, gives people in the county representation without taxation, which is a complete reversal of the American democracy. And as it disenfranchises important voices, particularly our African American community. So I'm against it. I was interesting to hear Mr. Joseph talk about the process of how it went about and how the city wasn't consulted. Similar to the way the city went about changing the source water protection plan, didn't bring in the other 5 jurisdictions that are a part of that plan. And I think our leadership in the last year on that issue hasn't been good, and we dropped the ball on that issue in a similar way.
Thank you. Well, we kind of have a united front on that issue, don't we?
Yeah.
Where am I here? If you were, who am I going to start with? Scott, I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
If you were elected, what would your pet project be? What's the one thing going on or not going on in the city of Dayton that you would like to really take hold of?
It's a great question. Well, probably what I'm most known for, along with being a pastor at the Vineyard Church, is I'm executive director of the Hope Foundation of Greater Dayton. And we provide groceries to nearly 1,000 households every month in Montgomery and Greene County. So fighting hunger is near and dear to my heart. 40% of Montgomery County qualifies for what we do. So it's a huge issue. We know that kids that are well fed learn better, and kids who are hungry don't learn well at all. So that's a huge issue. But as I've been out in the community over the past year talking with people, and this is no secret, is that we have a huge heroin issue right now. I had a meeting with Sheriff Plummer several months ago, and he told me some statistics. You know, we're having a couple people a week who are dying from overdoses, dozens of people who are overdosing and, you know, are ending up in emergency room. So I think it's a huge issue, and it's not just an issue for the people who are using. There are drug deals going down all across the city. That's a concern to our citizens, as well as my concern as just a person who's compassionate, and I'm a pastor. I want to help the families that are struggling with this and the neighborhoods that are struggling with this. So those would be two of my projects.
Thank you. Darryl, what would your pet project be?
I'm a lifelong Daytonian, and I've never seen our neighborhoods look as bad as they look right now. They've come apart, and in some areas it actually looks like a natural disaster has hit our area. When a natural disaster hits, it's an all-hands-on-deck approach. There has to be a sense of urgency, and we need to put our neighborhoods back together. And by doing that, a lot of good things will happen. One is we need to restore some confidence in our citizens who believe that this problem has been left to go too long and no one cares, and that no one is actually working on it. Second, there's a safety issue in our community around the blighted properties. Third is one of the number one factors when families look to move into a community is the quality of the schools. And if we would prioritize cleaning up around our schools, we could create safe, stable neighborhoods. They become the anchors again of our neighborhoods and have the multiple layers of relationships that really make families have a sense of belonging and an opportunity to thrive. And we need to put some money into youth programming in those schools. When we passed the levy to build the new schools, the school district made a commitment to make those community centers. And we haven't fulfilled that promise, and we need to work with the school board to fulfill that promise. Quality youth programming is the right thing to do by our young people. It is also a smart thing to do for the community. $1 put into quality youth programming can save $10 and $15 down the road. So that would be my top priority.
Thank you. Matt, I'll bet you've got one.
I do.
Let's hear it.
You know, I got to say that there are many things that we're working on at the city, and I'm proud to have worked with the mayor on our education initiative, making sure that education in the community is brought up to a standard that's acceptable for everybody, and even that someday our kids will thrive. We've demolished more houses than any other city commission in the history of the city. More dilapidated houses. We're trying to right-size housing. But I think the most urgent need is jobs. I've focused so far on, and I will continue to focus on, building the ecosystem for entrepreneurship, making sure that people have access to expertise, startup money, because certainly the market is here for people to be creative, start jobs, start businesses, and bring jobs to the city. But it doesn't stop there about jobs. We've been encouraging our manufacturers to hire more, and they have. We've been working with defense industry, with the tech industry, with healthcare industry, and everybody is hiring right now, which is really wonderful, providing some jobs for some of those refugees we talked about earlier, in fact, and others across the spectrum. So I think my focus is jobs, just because that's the root of a lot of the problems that we've had in the city is unemployment and underemployment. We want to make sure that people at all levels of society are employed, gainfully employed, and paid a living wage.
Thank you, Matt. You're each going to get 2 minutes to kind of wrap it up. This is your opportunity to say almost anything you want. Keep it civil, of course. You can tell us why you want to run, what you think your special qualifications are, or anything else you want to tell us. I'm going to do this one alphabetical, which means, Darryl, you get to go first, and you'll have 2 minutes.
All right. I'm a lifelong Daytonian. I love my city, and I've been in the community for over 20 years. I've talked to many citizens, and I know that we can do better. There are places where we aren't doing well. We've overemphasized our development in downtown, and we've left our neighborhoods to kind of linger out on the vine on their own. I think we need to get that balance correct. I wouldn't be running this race if I saw someone talking about the issues. I grew up in Belmont, and we had Abner Orrick and Dick Zimmer there, and they came and they fought on city commission for their neighborhoods and real people. And right now we don't have anyone on commission who is advocating for our neighborhoods and real citizens. I'm going to work on putting our neighborhoods back together, investing in our children, and looking for new economic models. Some candidates are going to say that the city's on the right path and is doing fine. I think if people look around the community, they know that there's still real needs and real issues that need to be addressed. In the last year, it hasn't been a good year for the City Commission. They didn't get the hiring of the city manager correct. Also, they didn't get the decision around the source water protection right. We need to get important decisions right. We can't continue to squander the resources of our community, and I'm going to be there to help make that true. I'm Darryl Fairchild, and I ask for your vote.
Thanks, Darryl. Matt, let's hear your 2 minutes.
It's been a real honor to serve as citizens of Dayton as a city commissioner. It has been a tough few years, and I'm proud to say that I and the team that I work with at City Hall, the mayor and the commissioners, have fought hard to make sure that we've continued city services as best we could. In fact, even through these tough times, we've been able to increase some of the services. We now have a recycling every couple of weeks. We have better bulk pickup. We were able to put some money last year into fixing some neighborhood roads and streets that hadn't been fixed in a long time. So we're fighting through this great recession, and things are getting better. As Mr. Fairchild pessimistically mentioned a moment ago, every indication that we have is that things are getting better. The number of jobs in the city is going up. The population of the city has gone up 3 years straight. People are voting with their feet. They're moving to the city. Our downtown rate of folks living in housing is over 97% now, and people are building more downtown. Buildings are being converted to housing. More jobs, more retail is opening all across the city. Things are getting better. But having been here through the downturn, I really want to be here as things turn around to help to guide and build a better, more diverse, and a stronger Dayton. And I'm Matt Joseph. I ask for your vote.
Thanks, Matt. Scott, your turn, 2 minutes.
Okay, well, I live downtown, and one of the issues with downtown is that, well, Dayton has the dubious distinction of being known as one of the most vacant downtowns in the country. Our office buildings specifically are more than 50% vacant. So there's a problem. We have businesses that are leaving downtown, not coming to downtown. In the mayor's State of the City address, she announced an initiative, Dayton at Your Service, which I love in theory. I think it's great. But it has to be more than a slogan. We have to have people that are out there helping small businesses through the process of locating downtown specifically. Yes, there's a ring of vibrancy that's happening around downtown. You know, we've got the Water Street project, and everybody loves the Schuster Center and Fifth Third Field. You know, we've got the new Goodwill building and the GE research facility. Those are all great. But, you know, where my mind goes is, what if someone from our city had made a call to Fuyao, and we could have had those 1,600 jobs on the west side instead of in Moraine. That would have given the people of our city a real boost. It would have done something really well for our city. I have an extensive background in advertising and marketing. I've worked on major accounts such as Merrill Lynch and Holiday Inn and Kings Island, and I think our city could use some promotion. I think, you know, it's great that we're known as a welcoming city, but we need to be known as a city that's friendly to business as well. So I'm Scott Sliver, and I would appreciate your vote for Dayton City Commission.
Thank you, Scott. We've been talking to candidates for the Dayton City Commission. There are 4 candidates, 2 will be elected. I want to encourage everybody to vote by all means. It's not just a right and a privilege, it's a duty. So be sure and vote November 3rd. Look for the League of Women Voters Voters Guide, our famous Voters Guide, which will be out the week of October 5th, I believe. Look for it in libraries and about a bazillion other places. And we do maintain, the League maintains a hotline, so if you've got questions about your polling place or what sort of identification is required, call our hotline. We almost always have all the answers. That number is 228-4041, 228-4041. And thank you for being with us today.